Hi, I'm doing an analysis on Johnson & Johnson Talcum Powder Ovarian Cancer lawsuits. So what is the lawsuit? Johnson & Johnson is currently embroiled in one of the largest mass tort litigations in U.S. history, involving over 50,000 lawsuits alleging that its talcum powder products caused ovarian cancer due to asbestos contamination. Plaintiffs claim long-term exposure to talc led to their illness and that J&J failed to provide adequate warnings to consumers. The company's legal liabilities have mounted to the point that it has attempted controversial legal maneuvers, most notably utilizing the Texas two-step bankruptcy strategy to limit its liability exposure. These efforts have been met with legal and public resistance, leading to both reputational and financial strain on J&J. So how did it start? The core of the litigation revolves around the alleged contamination of talc with asbestos, which is a known carcinogen. Talc and asbestos are naturally occurring minerals often found in close proximity in the earth, raising the risk of cross-contamination during mining. As early as the 1970s, researchers identified talc particles in ovarian tumors, and internal company documents, some have been revealed through litigation, suggest that J&J had knowledge of potential asbestos contamination and the cancer risk, but failed to disclose this to the public. J&J has consistently denied wrongdoing, arguing that its talc products are safe, asbestos-free, and supported by scientific studies. However, conflicting research and expert testimony have fueled continued litigation and public concern. In 2019, the FDA confirmed trace amounts of asbestos in samples of J&J's baby powder, prompting a voluntary recall and heightened scrutiny. So what are the lawsuits? The first significant lawsuit occurred in 2013 when Dean Berg sued J&J after her ovarian cancer diagnosis, alleging long-term use of the company's talc products as the cause. Although she won the case, she declined the $1.3 million settlement, seeking instead to have warning labels added to the products. Subsequent years saw numerous lawsuits, with plaintiffs claiming that J&J's talc products caused their ovarian cancer. In 2018, a landmark verdict in St. Louis, Missouri, awarded $4.69 million to 22 plaintiffs, which is one of the largest personal injury awards in U.S. history. Although J&J appealed the ruling and has had some success in getting judgments reduced or overturned, the accumulation of cases posed a sustained threat to its financial stability. In response, J&J created a subsidiary, LTL Management LLC, and transferred talc-related liabilities to it, then filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. This legal strategy was widely criticized as a misuse of bankruptcy law intended to shield a solvent company from accountability. The U.S. Third Circuit Court of Appeals later rejected this maneuver in early 2023, stating that J&J was not in financial distress. Corporate and product response. In response to mounting litigation, public backlash, and increasing scrutiny from regulatory agencies, Johnson & Johnson has taken several significant steps to mitigate damage, reframe its corporate narrative, and restructure its product offerings. These actions span product reformulation, strategic legal maneuvers, public relations efforts, and corporate restructuring, each with complex implications for stakeholder trust and legal exposure. The discontinuation of talc-based baby powder. In May 2020, J&J announced it would discontinue sales of talc-based baby powder in the U.S. and Canada, citing declining demand driven by misinformation about product safety and changing consumer habits. While the company did not admit liability, critics viewed the move as a tacit acknowledgement of mounting legal risk. In August 2022, J&J extended this discontinuation globally, announcing it would cease all sales of talc-based powder in 2023, replacing it with a cornstarch-based alternative. This shift away from talc was seen as a defensive yet necessary move to limit further liability and appease both health-conscious consumers and international regulators. Notably, the reformulated product aims to distance the brand from historical controversy while aligning with global safety expectations. However, consumer advocacy groups contend the change from decades too late, given that internal company documents reveal concerns about talc and asbestos dating back to at least the 1970s. Bankruptcy strategy and the Texas two-step maneuver. In a controversial legal strategy, J&J in 2021 created a subsidiary, LTL Management LLC, and transferred all talc-related liabilities to it. LTL then filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and moved colloquially dubbed the Texas two-step. designed to limit the company's litigation risk while continuing normal business operations. The tactic drew heavy criticism from legal scholars, plaintiffs' attorneys, and lawmakers who accused J&J of abusing bankruptcy protections meant for distressed companies. In January 2023, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the bankruptcy filing was not made in good faith because J&J was not in financial distress, effectively blocking this strategy. This ruling was a major setback for J&J, reaffirming plaintiffs' rights to seek compensation in civil court and signaling potential limitations to future corporate efforts to avoid liability via subsidiary bankruptcy. Despite this, J&J continued negotiating settlements and re-proposed a $6.5 billion global settlement plan in 2024 to resolve the bulk of outstanding cases. The proposal, though still under judicial review, reflects the company's willingness to shift from denial and deflection to cost containment and conflict resolution. Public relations and brand rehabilitation. J&J has consistently emphasized that its products are safe and asbestos-free, often citing selective studies and regulatory support. It has launched public relations campaigns to reassure consumers, arguing that decades of independent scientific evaluations have not conclusively proven a causal link between talc and ovarian cancer. However, several studies cited by J&J have been criticized for methodological flaws, industry funding, or conflicts of interest. As litigation escalated, J&J also began emphasizing its role in global health innovation, attempting to divert attention from the talc controversy by highlighting contributions to vaccine development and public health. This reputational repositioning seeks to frame the company as a science-based, socially responsible entity, despite ongoing criticism from advocacy groups. Strengthening internal risk governance. In recent years, J&J has signaled improvements in corporate governance and compliance oversight. Though the transparency and effectiveness of such measures remain under question, the company has implemented more robust product testing protocols, compliance auditing systems, and legal risk assessments for consumer health products. These reforms aim to reduce future litigation risk, enhance regulatory compliance, and restore investor confidence. However, critics argue that these internal controls are reactive rather than proactive, designed to limit liability rather than prevent harm. Advocates for corporate reform continue to call for more independent oversight, external audits, and greater transparency regarding historical product safety data. Who are the relevant issues and stakeholders? First, there are consumers and plaintiffs. Consumers, primarily women diagnosed with ovarian cancer, argue that Johnson & Johnson's failure to warn about potential talc asbestos contamination led to serious illness. Many have suffered physically, emotionally, and financially. Their primary demands are compensation, acknowledgement of wrongdoing, and accountability for corporate negligence. The scale of the litigation shows a deep public mistrust of product safety and corporate ethics. Next are Johnson & Johnson. J&J is under immense pressure to mitigate legal, reputational, and financial damage. The talcum powder was a flagship product, and the lawsuits challenged the company's historical branding as a trusted family health brand. J&J faces the challenge of maintaining investor confidence, rebuilding public trust, and containing legal exposure without admitting culpability. Next are regulatory bodies. Regulators, such as the FDA, are now tasked with reassigning gaps in oversight over cosmetic products. The FDA does not currently require pre-market safety testing for cosmetics unless classified as drugs, leaving many personal care products under-regulated. The J&J case illustrates the need for more stringent and proactive safety regulations. Shareholders and investors. With legal costs surpassing $6.5 billion in potential settlements, shareholders are concerned about J&J's financial exposure and the long-term damage to brand equity. Reputational harm can translate into reduced sales and market value, making transparency and strong governance critical for investor assurance. Healthcare providers. Physicians and oncologists must stay informed about emerging links between consumer products and chronic diseases. If talc is proven hazardous, healthcare providers will have to adjust medical guidance, raise awareness among patients, and potentially revisit diagnoses and treatment plans for impacted individuals. The broader society and legal system. The case raises questions about access to justice, corporate accountability, and the ethical boundaries of legal maneuvering. J&J's attempt to use bankruptcy protections for a solvent company could undermine trust in the legal system and encourage similar tactics among other corporations. The importance of the issue to stakeholders. For consumers and plaintiffs, the lawsuits represent more than compensation. They reflect a profound breach of trust. For decades, talcum powder was marketed as safe and gentle, especially for babies and women. When internal memos revealed J&J may have known of contamination risks as early as the 1970s but failed to disclose this, it raised serious ethical concerns. The harm endured by thousands, some terminally ill, underscores systematic gaps in corporate responsibility and public protection. For Johnson & Johnson, J&J's entire reputation as a healthcare leader is jeopardized. While the company has diversified its product lines and built a respected pharmaceutical division, the baby powder controversy taints its legacy. If it is perceived as prioritizing profit over safety, long-term customer loyalty and corporate credibility may erode irreparably. The massive financial implications from litigation, compounded by the failed bankruptcy strategy, also risk diverting resources from innovation and global health initiatives. For regulatory bodies, the J&J talc case has become a flashpoint for broader reform in cosmetic safety regulation. Currently, the FDA has limited authority over personal care products compared to drugs or food. The discovery of asbestos in some talc samples and the lag in enforcement action highlight a need for tighter controls, pre-market testing mandates, and clearer ingredient labeling. This case may serve as a legislative catalyst for expanding FDA oversight. For investors and shareholders, investors are deeply impacted by the uncertainty surrounding J&J's litigation liabilities. The unpredictability of jury verdicts and settlement negotiations, along with negative media attention, affects stock prices and overall investor confidence. While J&J remains a profitable enterprise, ongoing lawsuits threaten both near and long-term financial performance. Additionally, activist shareholders may begin pushing for changes in corporate governance and ethical oversight. For the legal system and broader society, the use of the Texas two-step maneuver raised significant alarm among legal professionals and consumer rights advocates. If successful, it might set a dangerous precedent which could allow wealthy corporations to avoid full liability without genuine financial distress. The judiciary's decision to reject this attempt was crucial in preserving the integrity of bankruptcy law and protecting victims' rights. Possible solutions. Global settlement and compensation. This would include J&J's proposed $6.5 billion global settlement through bankruptcy court as a means of resolving the majority of talc-related lawsuits. For consumers, this offers financial restitution and closure to thousands of plaintiffs. For J&J, this contains legal expenses and reputational damage by demonstrating proactive resolution. And for investors, this reduces legal uncertainty and clarifies financial liabilities, which can stabilize stock performance. However, the risks are that some plaintiffs may object to the structure or adequacy of compensation, leading to further delays or appeals. Full product transparency and scientific research. This would involve J&J releasing all relevant internal memos, test results, and safety data, and funding independent epidemiological studies on talc and cancer risks. For consumers, this would impact by building trust through transparency and scientific accountability. For regulators, this provides a more robust data pool to inform future guidelines. And for J&J, it can demonstrate a shift toward corporate transparency, reducing reputational damage. The risks, however, are that it may expose the company to further scrutiny or legal action based on new revelations. Regulatory reform and testing. This would involve federal efforts to implement mandatory asbestos testing for all talc-based products, enforce clearer labeling, and establish product recall standards. For consumers, this ensures future product safety and improves informed decision-making. For regulators, this addresses long-standing regulatory gaps, and for the industry, it sets industry-wide compliance norms, potentially reducing future litigation risks. However, this could also increase regulatory costs and compliance burdens for manufacturers. Ethical corporate governance overhaul. This would involve J&J enhancing board-level oversight of product safety, expanding its compliance infrastructure, and publishing annual ethical risk reviews. The impact on investor would signal internal reform and ethical realignment, and for the public, it reinforces perception of a values-driven company post-crisis. However, it does risk significant cultural and operational change, and it may face internal resistance. Public health and brand rebuilding campaigns. This would involve large-scale public awareness initiatives on ovarian cancer and safe product use while rebranding consumer health offerings around wellness and safety. For consumers, this encourages informed product use and emphasizes company commitment to health. For J&J, this helps reposition the brand positively in the market, and for healthcare providers, this gains access to updated consumer health education tools. However, the risks are that public skepticism may persist unless paired with genuine transparency. In conclusion, the Johnson & Johnson talcum powder litigation has evolved beyond a product liability issue into a defining case about corporate ethics, consumer safety, and regulatory oversight. A comprehensive and transparent response anchored in fair compensation, scientific accountability, and forward-looking governance can both resolve the current crisis and prevent similar occurrences. Addressing the concerns of all key stakeholders ensures a path forward that emphasizes both justice and sustainability. Here are the references.